I'm your host, Kelly Morgan, indie author and indie publisher. Welcome to another episode of The Author's Mic. Welcome to today's episode. Hey everybody, Kelly here. Welcome to another episode of The Author's Mic. You know it's Monday because I have a guest with me. Today I have Lisa Aaron. She is Man, she's a lot of things. She's an author, she's a podcaster, she's I think a workout guru. She's like a gaudier, a goddess warrior advocate. That's the only way the best way I can put it. But you know what? I'm gonna let her explain it to you. Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of the Author's Mic.
I'm really excited to be here as a new author. It's really good to be able to share my story amongst those other words of wisdom and other authors as well.
Yeah, so I always like to ask people because everybody that I've talked to, rarely does anybody plan the journey and where they are today. So how did you come to this whole warrior goddess saga, this whole thing, this whole theme you have going on? But I bet you it probably came from a place that you were not expecting it to come from.
Exactly that, for sure. So, yes, I have always been somebody that's loved the mystical elements. Like, I like sci-fi fantasy. I'm a complete and utter sci-fi nerd with anything from Star Wars and Xena, and I grew up with Buffy. And then when I decided to become a personal trainer at the ripe old age of 39, I was like, I didn't want to just be standard and the same as everybody else and being the fitness feminist and rebel that I am. I wanted it to also be a little woo, a little bit more in the spiritual side, and actually be fitness brought similar to like yoga and martial arts, which is kind of my background as well. And rather than just be bog standard, teaching people kettlebell training, which is what I taught, my brand started out as Warrior Goddess Kettlebell Training because it was all about getting lean, strong, and curvy, like those warrior goddesses that we grew up with, especially in my era, which was Wonder Woman and Xena and Buffy and these kick-ass Princess Leia, these kick-ass women that were very empowering and felt strong inside and out. And it was through that journey I developed a whole exercise programming, strength training specifically for women over 40 as I just had turned 40, setting that up. And I went from teaching it in a yoga studio to my clients saying, look, you need your own space. And it was co-funded and, go-funded me by my community. And we set up our own community space where I taught classes and meditation and nutrition and all the things that women in midlife needed and did that for it was about 5 years I'd had between the studio and the classes, teaching over 5,000 kettlebell classes. And I started to notice things even before my transition from COVID, which was that women were turning up and some people were getting results and some weren't. Some were maybe having amazing transformations, but still carrying a lot of shame and maybe the inner strength wasn't there, or their confidence wasn't there, or some would really struggle to even, show up because their lives were so busy and they had so much going on. And it was like there was some success, or I could literally stare in the room and go, you're going to be able to stick to this and you're going to struggle because I could just see what was going on. And then COVID hit. So I pivoted the whole business online. I already had quite a lot of it built online as a support. And I was doing workouts in my living room like everybody else did back in those days. And again, had great success. Things were going really well. But as with everything that goes up, some things come down too. And I found personally that for me, the year of about end of 2021 into 2022, without having resolved all the stuff that went through with COVID, I had, a lot of grief happened during that time. One friend died from cancer, one friend died from suicide, people that I was spending a lot of time with during COVID. Um, Unresolved other narcissistic abuse relationships. I think we went through complex PTSD as a collective, especially the women who were holding it all together and holding it all down. All of that came to a head where I had what I like to call the edge of the bed moment. Ever have one of those where either you're getting up and you swing your legs around and you just put your hands in your head and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Or maybe in my case, your body goes, nope, you're not getting up today. Nope, this is it. You've hit your limit. You've hit the wall. You're done. And I swung my legs around that morning and I couldn't stand up. My legs were so heavy. I was so tired. I've never felt that sense of exhaustion in my entire life. And this was somebody who was a qualified personal trainer, holistic health coach, meditation practitioner. I ticked all those boxes, and yet here I was, and I couldn't get out of bed. And I think from all of that complete and utter shutdown, burnout. I developed chronic anemia, amongst other things. My gut health was so poor. I was just exhausted. I was just done. And I knew in that moment, if I kept trying to push in the same way that we would have pushed in in our 20s or 30s, or, during COVID and all that, just, get to the other side, just get to next week, just get to next month, or whatever we tell ourselves. But if I kept doing that, what if I got really sick? Like, what if I really developed some sort of debilitating illness? Because that's what I'd seen happen to my parents, right? I was orphaned by the age of 22. My son's just about to turn 20. I had that in my mind, and I'm like, nope. My body is saying no, and I'm going to listen to it. And it was in that moment that I realized I needed to do things differently. But me being my little health geek nerd that I am, I went studying. So I went studying with like how do I heal myself, not just the physicality, because I know how to heal my body, right? I know how to eat well, I know how to move well, but something else is going on here. And that's when I started to learn the posh word is polyvagal theory, nervous system regulation. I learned all about energy psychology. I learned about somatic exercises and went and got certified in all of these things. I love and teach EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique to reduce cortisol and anxiety. And I went from having almost daily panic attacks and bone tired exhaustion, fatigue that I couldn't get out of bed, was constantly napping, to be able within a couple of, I think it was maybe about 8 weeks, to be able to get back to doing some exercise, to within 3 months being able to do strength training again. And I lost 20 pounds during that time from not really changing many things. Like I didn't go hard in the gym or anything. I was just so heavy with everything. Heaviness is the word I would describe, right? Everything was hard and heavy. And it was at the end of last year where I thought, okay, I've healed enough that I want to now spread this word. I want to serve in a different way. I want to think about the programs and the programming I was teaching and how that had completely changed because it had changed for me. And how can I put this out in this world? And I came across the word armor weight. I was trying to talk with a friend about how I was describing that time, and I just felt so heavy, and I was physically heavy. I'd gained 20 pounds. And I was like, it just feels like I was like sick of wearing the armor all of the time, right? Armoring up against the world. I mean, how many times did we say that? I don't know about you, but I used to say things like putting on my battle makeup, right? Putting on my clothes even became armor to the world. So it was in that time that I came up with this concept of armor weight. So armor weight is my definition is the energetic, emotional, and often even ancestral weight that we carry that can manifest as physical weight, but more often just feels like that heaviness that we can't quite describe, that then is then actually physically a shield in the body. So whether we're carrying it as excess fluid from our lymph, whether we're carrying it as extra weight and excess fat around our midsection, especially for women, in our midlife, or whether it's just the weight of unresolved guilt and people pleasing and burnout and unresolved trauma, whether it's big T or little t trauma, it's just that pure heaviness that we feel. And in that moment, that's when a book came out of me in 6 weeks. I wrote the book Unarmored, which is not about you becoming completely laid bare in a grassy field and 100% vulnerable to the world. It's about unarmoring and taking off the heaviness, letting it go, releasing and shedding it because it's no longer serving you. What was once protecting you is no longer serving you, and there's a way to still be strong and be capable and effective in this world without being so heavy.
And I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking, man, I can relate because just day-to-day task can become incredibly heavy after a while, your job, your family, whatever you got going on. And we don't think about it carrying physical weight or manifesting as physical weight. I know I have to chuckle when you say COVID because around COVID, I think I ate my feelings. I remember the last day at the gym, getting on one of those body scales and then being like, oh my God, you're like almost all muscle, right? And just being like in really great shape. And then the next day, the gym closed and I didn't continue to work out because secretly I'm afraid. And so I start, as I think the entire house, we just started eating our feelings because it was
Yeah.
easy.
They called it the COVID-19, which was ironic, like you would have the freshman 10 or whatever, 15, the COVID-19. But for me, it went the other way. I was training more because I was doing it for my community. So I was doing a
Mm,
workout every day that I was filming for my community to do it with me. I was streaming that. And then I was doing a walk for mental health with my child and my dog. And then that became hard. Like that became really hard carrying that responsibility. So actually during COVID, I was in great shape. The issue happened after that, like when I eventually did stop holding it all together and took a moment to pause, that's when I had like realized, okay, there was financial concerns, there was like I hadn't processed a lot of things. I hadn't had time to really think about what had been going on. I was definitely struggling with what they now know as CPTSD. I had a late diagnosis of ADHD in there. I broke up with a sister narcissistic friendship. It was very like there was so much challenging things going on. And as you say there, I wasn't processing anything. I wasn't thinking about it that way. And then of course perimenopause on top of that. Like I'm going to be 50 this year and I feel it. Like I can feel how that makes us think differently. And as you say, things are heavier now, but why is that? And there is something in midlife that happens that a lot of our subconscious and our neurobiology, people say work against you, but I don't think that's exactly it. It just changes, it reorganizes. And I think in midlife, the reason why we feel the armor weight more is because of that, right? Is that suddenly the thing that would have buffered us, estrogen has got a lot to answer for. It does a lot for us in the body, but as we notice it do its little dance before it declines, um, it is taking a lot of the buffer from stress. So we're more stress reactive, which makes us snappier and jumpier, and maybe even a bit angrier in that respect. Midlife Rage, that's my next book, by the way. And it's all about that. But it's like, you're jumpier, you're snappier, but also you've got this what I call it the bullshit monitor. You just don't give a damn as much, right? You can't take as much. You're like, no, that's just bullshit. You're calling it out everywhere, and you're just less inclined to be the people pleasing person that you might have been before because estrogen actually did a lot to boost that particular between our neurotransmitters and the general mood that we had, right? Because also if you think about the change in the life cycle, we're moving, the traditional life cycle of mother, maiden, crone, we're moving away from motherhood, which would have been the nurturing and the putting everybody first and the people pleasing and the fawning and things like that, into a new stage of life. Now, I believe that there's one before crone, because women are now living up to 41% postmenopause. So we
mm,
need to give it a name, right? And I call it the guardian, or I like to call it the warrior guardian for our community. And it's like more about us wanting to make an impact, make a difference, make to fight for things that are important to us, social justice, all of those things. Legacy becomes important, but also looking after more communities, more tribes, rather than us being about looking after just the family unit, right? And interestingly, during midlife, this is where we want to be strong and resilient, right? And this is actually where we want to feel stronger physically as well as mentally, and emotionally, because if we do step into this guardian phase, which I believe that we are, and we have the opportunity to be, we can be more like they have in nature that we can look to, like orcas, for example, pods of orcas. Studies have shown that the grandmother effect, they like to call it, I like to call it the guardian effect, that when they move into this postmenopausal stage of life, the pods that had these grandmothers in them are stronger, more resilient, have more children, are bigger, have more impact, they're more success, they have less illness, they have less disease, they don't get injured because they have this extra warrior looking out for the pod that isn't in direct, they're not having to be the hunters or they're not having to be this. They are somebody that specific role is to look after the well-being of the whole entire pod. And I think that that's amazing because that's what matriarchy can be, right?
That does that, and I can relate to everything that you said. And somebody who's stepped into menopause or whatever, that stage of life that nobody really prepares you for, right? Nobody really prepared me for it, but I've learned a lot in a very short period of time because I was forced into it. And the more that I learn and talk to other women, the more that I realize that I'm not by myself, right? You're not
Right.
alone, right? Because first you think you're going crazy, but then all the things that you said, I think when we step into that phase of our lives, you're right. We're not taking care of others. And for the first time, I think we're really thinking, man, like I really have time to take care of myself. I don't even know where to begin, right? Like I
Right.
want to do everything, right? Because I'm told not to age and I'm told to do this and I'm told to do that and I'm
Yeah.
told to do this. So I've got to do all these things. I've got to look a certain way and I've got to present a certain way because I am older. Because I've had older women tell me, well, I'm just invisible now. I'm at the age where I'm literally invisible. And I'm like, I've never really thought about it that way. So when I talk to different women and I get their opinions and what we're all going through, it's all so very similar, right?
Yeah.
But nobody ever told us. So I feel now that we have that more and more we're talking about it, we're comfortable talking about it, and we're comfortable stepping into it and owning it. I
Yes.
know I am because the first time I had a hot flash, I didn't know what the hell was going on.
And because it's not talked about, but then I don't know if we've gone the other way a little bit. I don't know about you, but perimenopause and menopause have become such buzzwords. They've become almost, it's either, you know, commercialized or medicalized, and it's like something that needs to be cured or something you need to buy pills and potions
Right,
for,
right.
where rather than this initiation, it's just like my friend called it old lady puberty the other day, and I was like, I'm kind of here for that. But I understand that it's like us going through just another shift initiation. I like to call it a reawakening because it's the perfect time for, Madonna style, Taylor Swift style, new era, new who do I want to be, right? So,
Great.
the starting of this book was for me asking myself three questions. What's working, what's not working, and who do I want to be now? And it was in that moment I'm like, yes, like who do I want to be? And that we have this opportunity to think about this new identity because you're right, patriarchy tells old women to go hide. You're done.
You're done.
Where's your value? There's no value anymore versus us having to claim that, right? What legacy do we want to put out there? What do we want to see more of? What are we willing to fight for? What are we willing to be visible for? And a lot of it is to do with, yes, generationally, we've got a lot, this generation of midlife women right now, we've been through a lot and seen a lot, right? If you actually look at Gen X women and the ones that are hitting, menopause around now, there was a lot that's going on. Mental health and fighting for our rights and everything that's happening now. Don't even get me started, the world's on fire. But it's like, what do we want to see? Because we're the ones with the power right now, right? Because we don't have a lot, you know, we don't have a lot riding on us as much as we did before, right? The families, maybe our kids are grown up, our parents or elderly parents, maybe we're still caring for them, but maybe not, in a lot of instances. We have more time, we have more energy. And the most important thing for us to do is not to be distracted by patriarchic standards, beauty standards, fitness standards. Look over here at this shiny thing. Buy this new pill or potion. Buy this new injectable. Stay small. Here's another drug that's out there. Because every time we step into our power a little more, every time we make a little change, they invent something else. At the moment it's GLP-1s, right? Before, every time there's female equality, then there was Weight Watchers. Every time there was something else, then there's something else that's trying to keep us small. So I believe that midlife is a invitation to ask, how can you step into this new identity? How can you reinvent yourself with the legacy and that you want to leave?
Fantastic.
And
Lisa,
that's the
if women wanted to connect with you, find you, how do they do that?
I think the best way is to enter the Warrior Goddess Saga. So that's what I call my series of books, of which Unarmored is the first. Go to thewarriorgoddesssaga.com. You can connect with me there. You can try the quiz, a quest, or the quickening, or you can download the first chapter of the book on there as well for free. Or you can come and connect with me on Instagram, Lisa_Barwise, just as it sounds, Barwise. And please come and find out information about what we do there. But the website's probably the best because that's where you can find out the whole saga and see how it can unfold for you.
Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the Author's Mic. I appreciate you. I will make sure all the information to reach you will be in the podcast description so that people can reach you. And I just have one question. So, what advice can you give to a woman, anybody who is stepping into this new phase and is like, okay, all of this sounds great, Lisa. Everything you got going on sounds great, but I just need you to tell me where do I start? What small step can I actually do today, that will help me on my journey, that will like that first little push forward.
The most important thing is thinking about this safety before strength. When your body feels safe and you can move out of survival mode, right? Which is us, our body, fight or flight, feeling all the things, anxiety, being pulled. You need to go to safety, right? So safety is about you regulating yourself. So a regulated woman can't be messed with. She is strong within herself, right? She knows that even when the world is on fire, you know how to be in the world without burning out, right? So it's like beating to your own drum. Even though the drums are getting louder and louder and you're being pulled here, there, and everywhere, when you learn how to regulate, when you put safety before strength, safety before anything else, you're able to be stronger in any environment, whether that be with your family, your partners, your loved ones, or for the legacy work that you want to do for the new identity that you want to claim.